Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
So I will call this meeting to order a little late tonight, 6:43. It's a regular school board meeting. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right. Approval of the minutes, August 24th, 2020. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any discussion, changes, questions about the previous meeting's minutes? Okay.
We got 100, Bonnie. No changes.
Hearing no changes or discussion, all those in favor of approving the minutes from August 24, please say aye.
Aye.
And anybody opposed? Okay. Public comment. Is there anyone here in person at the library from the public who has a comment? And now I will turn my attention to remote. Is there anyone attending this meeting remotely from the public who has a comment? Now would be your time to unmute and speak up, please.
Hi, Tim Smith. This is Craig Pettis.
Hi, Craig. Go ahead.
Thank you. I was very appreciative to get Principal Hall's letter today about transportation from Stafford. My student goes to Stafford. Appreciative to know that they're working on solutions. Is there a time frame where we may know about more solutions regarding that?
Brooke, do you have an answer?
I was just looking at Phil. No, I mean, it's still a work in progress. We're trying to find drivers.
Okay. And then just one other comment, I guess. I approached Allie Morgan about practice schedule, and she said that there was an athletic committee. Can someone speak to what this athletic committee is, please?
Sure. Phil, the principal, or Ally, the athletic director, correct? Chris, where do they have to stand to be heard to? All right, Craig, we got a few people stepping forward here. Just give us a couple seconds.
Perfect. Yep, thank you. Very appreciative.
Yeah, so the athletic committee, we were asked to put one together when COVID came out in regards to how we were going to handle sports at Fairhaven High School. The committee was formed of the nurse, we had a couple coaches on it, we had the principal on it, myself, and the athletic trainer, and we just discussed possible issues that were going to come up and how to solve, COVID-related issues that might come up during the fall season.
Okay, and then I guess just one final question again, as I have a student who's going to Stafford and is participating in field hockey, away games, travel schedule. Is that going to be our responsibility potentially to get our student to the game?
Nope, so we're offering transportation for all of our extracurriculars this year, just like every other year. If you want to transport your child, though, to an away game, you're more than welcome to, but we are going to provide transportation for all away games.
Okay, even though there may be conflicts, so like I know there's a game in Otter Valley at 4, I think one of their first games. And my student doesn't get out of school over there till like 2:25. I would imagine the bus would be leaving somewhere before she can make it back to Fairhaven.
Yep, so we can handle that on a case-to-case basis, but in the past when we've had issues like that, we've had the bus stop and pick up students from Stafford. It would
yeah, I mean, she's there on alternate days, so I appreciate your help. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody else from the public attending remotely who has a public comment? Please unmute and speak up. All right, hearing no further public comments, we will move on to correspondence. Brooke, anything we need to know?
Nope.
Okay. All right, committee reports. The Finance Committee met just prior to this meeting, and the chair of that committee, Glenn.
So, yes, we met, we went over several things, as far as, end of the year balances, kind of an update on some COVID relief money, reserve funds, and, we started to discuss the fiscal year 2020 budget timeline, just kind of outlining where we're going. Taking, for people to kind of start to brainstorm, and we'll go on from there. One of the things, Chris gave us an update because there was a big increase in the water bill, and there was a leak that has been found that created a large expense, but hopefully that will not happen again. That's kind of a brief update. It was more discussion and starting to get the thought processes going than taking any action at this meeting. But we do have action for the board to take on warrants. And so at this time, I'd like to make a motion to pay the warrants from 8/7 to 9/10 of 2020 in the amount of $1,712,312.38.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Yes, Jim, not hearing any. All those in favor of paying the warrants, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Also make a motion to approve the food service payment in the amount of $40,160.38.
Second.
I guess I should have taken over there, I'm sorry. You made the motion, you're right.
I was looking, but I thought you wanted me to
Yeah,
keep going,
okay.
so.
So Glenn the motion, Julie the second. Is there any further discussion on it was the food service warrant?
Yes.
Any questions or discussion on food service? All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
And anybody opposed?
And I would make a motion to approve the grant payments in the amount of $10,899.43.
Second?
Is there any discussion or questions on the motion regarding the grants? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, anything further, Glenn?
I think the one thing I did miss is that we're still kind of in limbo. Many of you may have heard that there was some legislation to protect school districts with their ADM, as far as with an increased number of homeschools, people homeschooling. That still is in a legislative quagmire. So more on that to follow.
Just a quick question. So they're in session currently right now through as long as it takes, or through the end of the month, or what's the story with them?
Well, initially, my understanding is they were supposed to go back to solve the budget. They kind of quasi-approved the budget. They were supposed to come back, and now they've decided that they're going to do other stuff, and I think they're talking about being there probably through October.
Okay.
So they're going to try to run as much stuff through, I think, as they can, and some of it may not be what's the highest priority, but that's politics.
Okay. Thank you very much, Glenn. Athletics update, we have a couple of the athletic directors from high school and middle school sports. I know they were asked to be present at the last meeting. So here they are. If you would step forward and introduce yourself. I'm not sure if you have a presentation or if you're just fielding questions. Give us what you got and we'll go from there.
I can go first. I'm Allie Morgan. I'm the athletic director here at Fairhaven Union High School. So far, I'll start with participation numbers. So usually we have around 150 athletes signed up for fall sports. Right now, we're at 123, so we're down a little bit this year. But most of our numbers, like boys soccer, usually we can't have a JV program. This year, we're offering a JV program. So where some others may be lacking in numbers this year, we're gaining in others. So, and then as well, I have copies of our protocol and procedures that was put together by the athletic committee here at Fairhaven Union High School that I can pass around, or they're also available online through the Slate Valley website and Fairhaven forums. So I don't know if we want to pass those around, if not, or not. But the first form on the back is what our coaches are using to screen our players before every practice. And then the last form is what we will be using to screen our spectators at all home games. All of our coaches have been trained on how to screen for COVID-19 by Deb Hansen. So they're all up to date on that. And then our gate and admission workers for home games are going to be getting trained this week on how to screen our spectators as they come for home games.
I'm Kim Alexander, and I'm the athletic director for grades 5 through 8 in the Slate Valley District for Warrants, Benson, Fairhaven, Castleton Elementary, and Castleton. Unfortunately, the decision has been made this fall that we will not be having a 5th and 6th grade soccer program, nor will we be having our padded flag football due to COVID and other circumstances. We will be offering a 7th and 8th grade boys and girls soccer program, and we will be offering a cross-country program. Our numbers are way down due to the loss of padded flag and also the loss of our 5th grade programs for this year. We currently have 26 7th and 8th graders that have signed up from the district, 10 from Castleton, 4 from Orwell, 1 from Benson, and 11 from Fairhaven. That's for soccer. And I have
Boys and girls?
boys and girls. I can break down the numbers for you if you needed that. Also, cross country, I have 10 athletes, 7 from Castleton, 1 from Orwell, 2 from Benson, and currently no one from Fairhaven that have signed up. I've heard from some of my students, but I keep responding, please sign up. Tomorrow, the 15th, is the deadline formally for our registration for fall. It has been open since July 1, and we did extend it to tomorrow so that people would have a chance to get back to school and that information could get out there. As far as soccer, did you want the numbers between girls and boys?
No, that's fine.
Okay, because
Not for me.
there's a lot more boys than there are girls. My hope is that we will be able to play games, and if we do play games, I need to do some fancy figuring out of how we're going to do that with our numbers. But right now, we're currently going to, our cross-country team is going to practice here at the high school from 4:30 to 5:30 on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Elizabeth Volpe, who is a resident of Benson, but a teacher at Orwell Village School, will be our coach this year. And then our 7th and 8th grade boys and girls soccer program is going to be coached by a head coach of Terry Perry and an assistant Eileen Lusinskas. All 3 of them have been trained to screen for COVID symptoms, and I also have been, and I will be there to support them at every practice. Terry Perry is currently going to be traveling each day for practice. On Monday, she'll be in Orwell. On Tuesday, she'll be in Fairhaven. On Wednesday, she'll be in Castleton. And on Thursday, she'll be in Benson. And then Friday will be a second date for practice, starting with Orwell and then Fairhaven and then Castleton and Benson. We tried to make it as fair as possible. She's very excited about working with all 4 schools. She's hoping to bring the same skill set to all of our 7th and 8th graders and bring them, hopefully our 8th graders, where they need to be for the 8th grade, or for the freshman program when they reach the high school. I'm excited that she was willing to take on that daunting job because it's 5 days a week traveling to all of the schools. And I'll be there. I told her I'd be at every practice for at least the first couple, 2 to 3 weeks, to support her with screening and everything that they need. So we also have the same forms. Deb Hansen passed on the student data sheet and the parent or fan data sheet that we will also be filling out. I will be the one at our home games to do the process of screening, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to get our October games in. But I've reached out to every athletic director that I deal with, and they know that game-wise, everything's canceled through the end of September, and that everything else is on hold. And I've already heard back from a couple schools that their numbers are low, so they're gonna, when we normally play a 7-8 boys and a 7-8 girls, they're now combining because their numbers are so low. Just hoping for the best. Most excited that the kids are back in school and that we're able to do things with them. Does anybody have any questions?
7th, 8th grade soccer. So they're gonna go to each town, and all the towns gonna go to each town?
No, unfortunately, the kids
Okay.
can't practice together right
Oh,
now.
right,
Because
okay.
they
So
don't go to
Orwell's
school.
gonna practice. So Benson, you said, had 1?
Yeah, so we're, I was waiting until tomorrow to have my final numbers, to then have a discussion with someone with more authority than myself. Yeah, we currently have 1 student in Benson, 4 in Orwell, which I will tell you, when I told Terry those numbers, she was like, we'll do what we gotta do. So, I'm really impressed with her gung-ho attitude, and we want to do what's best for the kids.
To follow up on that, so if we get to stage 3, which I guess is scheduled to be next Monday and then 5 days thereafter, would you then allow schools to commingle and practice together?
Well, I would love to, and I have some ideas, and the superintendent's shaking her head yes, so I'm gonna go, that's the intention.
Yeah, if we get to stage 3.
And right now, that would mean we had made the decision this year to commingle Castleton and Orwell and Benson and Fairhaven. So that would give us 2 full teams,
Co-ed teams.
co-ed teams. I have some other ideas, but those are things that I need to wait on numbers and wait on whether or not we even get to play games.
So are we limiting spectators at high school games? Like, are we counting them and limiting them?
Yep, so every athlete, we're gonna be doing tickets based off of the roster for each game. So every athlete gets 2 tickets. The rest of the tickets are first come, first serve after that.
And what's the limit?
150.
150. Okay, I think we gotta get that out there fast.
That's home
Does
and
that
away.
change in
Home and
stage
away,
3?
they
No,
get
we
to-
can't control the away school. We
Stage
can only
3,
control the
we
home.
won't know.
Some of the away schools don't
And
have
stage
any
3 decision is
spectators,
when?
So it depends.
It's,
Well, that's why I
they
have the
said it
question.
could be as early as 2 weeks from the start of school.
Oh, so there's
hopefully-
no concrete date on that yet.
There's no, yeah, there's no.
So when you
confirmed-
said you're not playing anything until October, is that the same for the high school?
We're only
No,
practicing
okay.
at the middle school.
That's middle school,
The high
okay.
school is currently practicing, they started practice last week.
But there's games scheduled for like starting next
There's
week.
games starting for Saturday, that's based off of if we get to stage 3 by then. If we don't get to stage 3, then those will be canceled.
My understanding is we're supposed to get guidance on what stage 3 looks like by Friday, so I don't think we're gonna be at stage 3 on Monday, but. So I would not imagine games happening next week.
So when games begin, how's it gonna be communicated to parents what away games look like as far as what is allowed? Like, kids go to Burton, are they allowing spectators? Because like I'd heard, there are some districts that aren't even allowing spectators from visitors.
Yep. So for at least the high school, I've been in communication with the VPA. We're hoping to get a tab at the VPA website where you can go to each school and just click on it and see what their spectator policy is. However, what we're most likely going to do until that's up and running is it's just going to be communication between me and the other AD, and getting that communication out through our social media platforms.
In my plan for middle school is the same thing. I
Yep.
will ask the schools who are visiting what
Right.
their policy and procedures are, and then I'll get that out.
Because it's not going to be the same at every school. I
Correct.
know a lot of them are doing the 2 tickets per athlete home and away, but not every, I know Mill River's not doing spectators, and I know Mount Anthony's not doing spectators at all either.
Did we come up with the 150 from the state?
Yeah, it's in the state guidelines.
Can we change that?
No, well, you
I
can
mean, the
make
less.
it less. Yes, you can make it less, you can't make it more.
Why would you?
Just wondering if we really need 150 people at a game
never get 150.
You're not gonna get it, I mean, football maybe.
for football.
You're gonna get it at soccer.
I know for soccer we do.
You're gonna get it for soccer.
So I just heard you say, which I did not catch the first time, when you said 2 tickets per athlete, 2 home tickets and 2 away tickets?
So we take the roster from both teams, home and away, and every student on that roster gets 2 tickets.
That's how we do it, but that does not mean that I get 2 away tickets.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep.
What are you doing with,
That's why I was clarifying.
I was like, well, what are you doing with parents that are divorced? Do that have
Oh,
mom?
well, no significant others.
I don't know.
2 tickets.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
What's a ticket? You actually give people a piece of paper?
No, we're not trying to do any kind of transfer. So what we're doing is we're just printing off the rosters, and then we're gonna have 2 separate lines, one for parents and guardians for the 2 tickets, and then the rest is just general admission, first come, first serve. When they come up, they say which athlete they're there for, and once their two tickets are used, they get crossed off the list.
So if you have 2 athletes, do you get 4 tickets?
Correct.
Okay, Peter.
Well, didn't you luck out, Peter?
So for the general admission, you're not going to try to do anything ahead of time to avoid a scene at the ticket gate?
So right now, the best solution the athletic committee came up with was first come, first serve, because that was the fairest way we thought we could do it. My hope is to have the rosters ready so I can have kind of an estimate of how many we're going to be able to let in to put that out there, so that, you know, it's, you know, if you want to come, you can come, but just, you know, you're only going to have, we're only going to 20 people in, so.
So you said the athlete comes in and said, what athlete you're first? So say my parents beat me there and they say they're watching Gabe, there's 2 tickets gone, right? Gabe's name's crossed off before I can get there?
You betcha.
That's it.
Don't give your tickets away, Tara.
No, well,
So are you
my
gonna
well, just
have a
think about
gates
it. They
open
wouldn't, you'd have to like,
Since it's first come, first serve, are you going to have a gates open time?
Yeah, so we're planning on selling tickets an hour before the game like we typically do.
oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to like be tailgating at
And
a
if
game just to get my
gatherings
kids
are
in.
limited to 150 people, is that inclusive of coaches and athletes, or is that 150 spectators?
It's 150 spectators, and then game staff, officials, players, they're not
No,
included in
well,
that
that's good.
150.
Can we go back to Tara's question, because I would think that the
What?
athlete, the parent and the guardian's name would be next to the athlete.
Right,
not-
but the way it was said
not
though, I was
somebody
like,
comes in and says, oh, I'm here to watch Gabe Buxton. and
Well, I
they
think
put it down.
for our, I mean, we know who the parents are of our athletes.
right.
So-
Well, I just wanted clarification because the way you said it was, you're asking everybody who they were there to watch. They beat me there, there goes the name off the list. I show up and I'm listening to it from the parking lot in my truck. Hoping It's just, it's a tough situation. It is. I get it.
Christine, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a question. So suppose you have 150 people that can come, and suppose if each athlete is allowed 2 tickets, suppose that comes up to 140 people. So then only 10 other people are going to be allowed in, so they're going to have to wait until all the other people get in or get their tickets.
So at the high school, what we're doing is we're reserving those 2 tickets per athlete up to 10 minutes prior to the game. For our home parents,
Yeah,
if they tell us they can't get there 10 minutes prior to the game, they just have to let me know and we'll save those tickets. However, if those tickets aren't being used and they haven't given us a heads up, those additional tickets will also be sold. So we know that we can let 10 people in now, but then if those other additional tickets are available afterwards, then we'll open that up to whoever's still waiting.
And our biggest roster is what? How
Right
many
now,
people
we
in
have
football?
41 signed up for football.
How many?
41.
So 41 times 2, so there we still got plenty of tickets.
But then you have to consider
the other
their
team.
The other teams.
Yeah, but they're not gonna do it at their games either. I mean, it's sure it's gonna be similar. So we're gonna have a hard time going to other schools to watch games as well.
If we get them.
Yeah.
There
So
would be no,
at the games, are, for the spectators, will there be some kind of attempt to keep people socially distanced in the stands? Or is it just going to be everybody piled together like they normally do? With kids all running around doing everything but watching football
They don't
throughout
get
the
a ticket.
game?
So we're encouraging people to bring their own lawn chairs, but we are going to offer the bleachers and have marked off sections and have signage as well as to wearing a mask, social distancing, all that stuff.
And then like, once the game starts, is everybody going to, as typical, leave the gate so that people that show up 10 minutes after the game starts just all keep walking in?
No, so we plan to have our staff there at least till halftime, and we're also going to have additional police presence walking the facilities to make sure that nobody's trying to sneak in. And we've also put in our policies that if you leave the facilities, you're not allowed to re-enter.
Is there any board members remotely who have a question for the athletic directors? All right, anybody else here have questions? So still, yeah, still a lot to be determined then, huh? Well, thank you so much for all the work you're doing, all these contingencies you're putting in place, and then I hope we get to execute these plans and not have all the work be for naught. So thank you very much to both of you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, update on reopening schools. Brooke?
Yep. So, last week, we reopened schools, and honestly, every principal that I've spoken to has said it was actually the smoothest opening they've ever had. And so it went really well. There were definitely some kinks that needed to be worked out in terms of arrival and dismissal. We don't have enough bus drivers, so that remains a concern. We have an issue with the Stafford run that we're trying to hire an extra driver for. So those things definitely are concerning. We started the year at the high school with down a science teacher. So we have a contract tonight for you to consider for that position. So that person would be starting on Thursday. But overall, it went really well considering all of the changes. Staff, parents, students, everyone was really patient and appreciative and really worked together to make sure it was successful. And so far, so good. It's been successful. Every day we increase or decrease our dismissal time and screening time in the morning, so we're getting better and better at that. Definitely the first day was a little rocky where that was concerned, but it's gotten much better. And the kids really don't have a problem with the masks in the classroom. They're doing a great job with that. So all in all, really went well. I don't know if folks have specific questions.
I got a question. Do the teachers and administration supporting them feel as though they're going to be able to cover the material they have to cover in these classes now with all this extra stuff going on and a short day and, right? Because they're...
Well, we've certainly prioritized material that is being covered addressed in the classroom, but we've also put an emphasis on social emotional learning at the beginning of the year here. and building relationships with our students who we haven't seen in person for 6 months. So that's definitely the focus right now. You know, I think there could be less material covered with the shortened school day overall, but hopefully, you know, what we are covering, we're doing very, very well. There's definitely a greater emphasis on outdoor education, and we have some great outdoor classrooms going in some of the schools that are just wonderful. So I think it's definitely, we're taking a different approach to education. It's definitely not what was happening pre-pandemic. It's very different.
I wonder if they think this is better than that remote that they did. And of course, that was thrown on us pretty quick and pretty fast, and I know it was a struggle.
I mean, you'd have to ask an educator, but I definitely, or a teacher in the classroom, but I definitely think it's better than remote.
Going by kids is better than remote. Going by what any kid I've talked to, this is better than going remote. I know no kids that want to do it remotely. It's just, for most kids, it doesn't work. There might be a few, but for all the ones I've ever talked to, they do not like remote. They'd rather be in school, even if they're wearing masks.
This is Becca St. Peter. I have kids at the high school, I have kids at Stafford, and I have kids at the grade school, and one of them's yelling right now. My son, Will, came home today so excited in the Benson Village School about the cool stuff that he learned, and he was so happy. Even though he's wearing a mask all day, he came home happy. And my pre-K came home happy. And my kids that are doing remote and in-person, they're going through it really well. Of course, the Stafford busing thing makes it difficult for us, but overall, all of my kids are so much happier than they were in the spring. And I think all of the schools are doing a really great job helping parents who call in. I know that I had some issues and I was able to contact people at the high school and they resolved them in such a great manner and so friendly and happily. And everybody that I've had to talk to, everybody in the schools seems to be so positive, it can't help but rub off on our kids.
Pretty lucky we're in person as much as we are. I really do. The schools that are 100% remote, those kids are struggling. Very much so. I think we're pretty lucky, and I think what we're getting in our classrooms with the extended periods at the high school, having, what is it, 70 minutes, Phil, now? Yes, 70-minute periods. That's almost double, or a little less than double what I had when I went here. So I feel like, yeah, we might be maybe prioritizing what we're doing, but it's still happening. I happen to go home for lunch every day that the kids are home, and I do hear one class, because it's the same time every day, that Matthew's on. And so far, I mean, he's doing homework, they're doing what they need to do, just like I would see them doing in a classroom. I haven't seen anything like dramatically different, you know. So far so good too. Any scenario at all that would bring us all back to the high school?
Yes.
What would that be?
Well, Phil and I were actually just chatting about this today. You know, I think, and we have a reopening task force meeting on Wednesday, but I think if we were entering into stage 3 and we were there for several weeks and things were going really well, then I think we would talk about bringing all the students back to the high school in person.
Okay.
But, you know, I wouldn't want to do it as soon as we, you know, hit stage 3. I'd want to wait probably the 14 days and make sure no cases popped up. And then bring the students back, because our class sizes are fine. It's really the transitions in the hallways that we need to think about carefully. So, and it's also, you're going to be screening double the amount of kids. So those are the types of things we need to think about. And we can't adjust the arrival and dismissal because it's dependent on the elementary schools. So it's more about those transitions. But I think in terms of class sizes and getting the kids back in person full-time, we can do that. So it's just gonna take some planning. But I think it's a priority.
Yeah, super happy to hear that. Because I think I'm not trying to rush it, but I think if the kids even know in their head that that's an option because they keep doing everything that they're doing and things are going well, I think you're gonna get so much more buy-in to actually be here every day. Because I think they really enjoy it.
Yeah, if we can keep doing everything safely and do what we need to do, then that is the ultimate goal.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Brooke, and just a quick thought in closing, I'm just really proud of this school board, and I'm proud of all you, principals, administrators, teachers. I'm proud of you, Brooke, for the courage it took for all of us to open our building up, and I don't want to say take a chance, but to take that leap of faith and put the anxieties and the fears aside and move forward in a safe and responsible way. I can't imagine what it's like being a parent in Mill River or Otter Valley right now. I'm very thankful that we're in person, so good job by all. All right, so number 9, communication with community. Brooke and I just spoke briefly while the meeting was starting, and she can maybe articulate her thoughts, but I think the general summary here is, how do we continue to stay engaged with our communities, as a Slate Valley board, but also as individual towns, part of that board. I think we all feel that the listening tours leading up to the budget revotes were generally positive and maybe had a good impact, and there's no reason to put those aside just because we have a passed budget now. Maybe that gives us an opportunity to keep people engaged and keep people informed. So Brooke, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, so, well, a couple of things, and it kind of goes in line with the next couple of things on the agenda as well. But we're going to have some difficult budget scenarios ahead of us if you were, in the finance meeting, and just the general uncertainty of the state of, the state of the union right now, and the state of the finances in Vermont. So what we need to start doing is communicating early, communicating often, and really building that trust, which has eroded over time with the community. So how do we best do that? Tim and I were speaking before the meeting. This actually stems from, it was an idea I think Cheryl had this morning at a central office meeting, is we used to have those parent advisories when we first merged, and they were relatively, I would say, unsuccessful because parents really didn't show up at the meetings. So a wonder we have is maybe one of the board meetings every 2 months, the last board meeting of the month, you do the parent advisory with a principal in that school in place of the board meeting, and it's at 6:30 at night, and it's really a community kind of, I don't know what you'd want to call it, but a community listening event or community advisory meeting. And it could be a mix of virtual or in person or just virtual. And then you have some topics that you discuss with the community and the principal at the table. Now, central office wouldn't be at all 6 of them, and I think it went fine without having us at any of them the last time. It probably went better. So, so I don't know. That's one idea, just throwing it out there. That came up today. I know Julie mentioned more of a newsletter at the last, I think it was at the last
Well, I
meeting.
just don't think it can hurt, right? I get all sorts of emails at my desk, newsletter from this organization, newsletter from that. One-pagers, I skim them. What's an important topic that I want to know? Is there a link to click on to a cool article? I click, So I think I'm just saying, any opportunity for people to see something about what we're doing. Even if it says finance committee meeting, quick notes, click here. Click here. People will do that if it's sent to them in their mailbox, or if they can go somewhere and get it quick. So, or on Facebook, post it on Facebook. So, It doesn't have to be this in-depth 3-page, a 1-page with little, little articles where people can click to something, would get some information out there.
I have heard from some parents, though, that getting lots of emails from the schools in any form, it gets overwhelming, and they don't tend to read everything through because they're trying to concentrate on what really needs to happen for their kids, especially if they have remote learning and in-school learning going along with that. So they might be overwhelmed and not as likely to read anything that comes into their inbox.
And I can agree with that. When my kids were in kindergarten, 2nd grade, and 3rd grade, no, I didn't either as much, but I do now. And so hitting all the parents and just, you don't read it, you don't read it.
But I think it's also not just the parents that we have to get to, it's the.
Yeah.
Correct.
Greater
It's the,
community, right.
community members that don't have children in our school, so how do we get them to come out and interact?
I mean, that's.
And those would be the people that came to our meetings, our little in-person meetings. It wasn't the parents, it was the other populace. So sending emails to parents doesn't really hit the niche that we need to get the word out to.
Probably when you look at all the people that can vote, I would say that people without children in the school probably outnumber the ones with kids in the school.
Oh, yeah.
5 to 1, 6 to 1 in the
By a
district.
lot, yeah.
But
Yeah.
some of the ones I get good are ones that I choose to join, right? So if I send, it's not like I'm getting things from, these are things that I've chosen to receive information from in my email. So I've joined and given my email to these people. It's not something coming from something that I didn't solicit, right? Or is something, it's my choice. So if somebody would choose to give you an email because they want your weekly newsletter, your monthly newsletter, send it to them.
Yeah, so maybe we
Oh.
can
Like a
have a
subscription.
community email
Yeah.
list. That's something we can talk with Josh about, how we can do that.
What I was trying to say is that the people that don't have kids in the schools are the ones that we really need to target, because that's the largest block of our voters. And we need to,
we could get a way to get them to be able to sign up for it.
Yeah.
Put out something.
You can do that, but they're the biggest consumers of social media.
Huh?
They're the, I mean,
Oh, yeah, that's what
like
I'm
my
saying.
age group, not me, but my age group just sits there and
Yeah.
looks
But
at
if
that
you get it out
stuff
there so they
ad
can sign up for
nauseum,
it,
so
they
if
can
you
get
just
this
figure out how to.
email.
Well, did other towns collect email addresses of the people who attended their listening tour?
We didn't have a sign-in or anything.
But I like your idea of, something with a link to click on.
Yeah.
Because if you keep it to one page once a month, because other comments we heard were that the Slate Valley website is kind of hard to navigate or to find what they want. And if it could be a one-pager with a couple links to specific things. And, and tell them, this will not be more than once a month, stick to it. Yeah, that's a good idea.
What about the meetings, every other month, the last school board meeting being
I think
replaced?
that's a good
Sure.
idea.
People like that idea?
So then the first time you would do that would potentially be October, what is it? It's the last one of the
26?
month.
26?
Might be, yeah.
The principals are obviously okay.
Well, I only talked to one principal today. This was just an idea that I had. So you have one sitting in the audience.
So
So
we
what
didn't
about
have
that?
principals at the listening tours though.
Yeah, we did.
No.
No.
Yes, we did.
You could.
Our
No, you
principal was there. It
could.
was fine to not have the principal there. It doesn't always have to be about that school and, a principal. It can be just in general.
It can be whatever you guys want it to be. Yeah.
But it would be where? I know you said a combination of remote and possibly in person, but where would the in-person be?
It could be at the schools.
So we can go into schools.
You just can't go into them.
It can be at the school. October 26th in the parking lot where I'm freezing, Brooke.
Yeah, it can't be at the school.
In the dark, right?
Because we don't have streetlights.
That's exciting. I want you to think about that for a minute. I'm not attending October 26th.
Can we find community places
You can do
that'll
it
let us.
virtually.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying that it would have to be virtual.
Yeah, then you're not gonna get a certain amount of people.
Yeah.
Virtually or
Yeah.
Well, you can find community places if you
Yeah.
want to do that, but I know a lot of the meetings that we had this summer were outside.
Yeah, because
But
we
if we
could.
get through stage 3.
But it was nice
will
out, Brooke.
we be
It was
allowed to
nice
come
out.
into
I don't know,
schools, or-
let's see, I think they're gonna, some of that stuff's gonna come out later this week, supposedly,
Yeah.
so let's see
Community
what it
center
says.
closed.
but-
Plus, I would want to be really careful with that
Last I
because
knew, their
we just
meeting
started
was closed.
having all of our travelers heading,
Maybe
north
not.
to south, south to north,
So
whatever.
I think the first one in October would probably have to be virtual to start.
So how are you gonna get that link out to all the people that wanna come?
I know.
Once they sign up for the community newsletter, Peter, it'll be in there. No, I don't
Get
know.
that done back.
No, we're not.
That's
I
gonna
don't
be
know.
the hard part
It'll be
I
a
think we need
learning
to work
curve.
on the newsletter.
Break the
Yeah.
link on the balance.
for now.
See if we can get that to work, because virtually is gonna be hard to get,
Yeah, it is.
and
And it's gonna be pitch black by 4 o'clock.
yeah. I mean, unless you could do it like, I mean, in Orwell, we could do it in the library, I'm sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Maybe. But, I don't know. Depending on how many people in it wanted to come.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true too, right?
But I think doing a virtual one will be very hard right now.
Well, we can just see how the next, month progresses, try to get the newsletter out, try to get people to sign up for it, and then let's see where we are with the whole pandemic, and
So could you do a mailing to the people so they could log in somewhere to sign?
I can, it's just, every
don't
time
know
we do
how-
a mailing, it's costly, so
How are
I
you
just
gonna
want
get-
folks to really realize that.
How much postage was.
If
You
only
gotta get
a lot
some
of
of these
flack
people to
for
be
it.
able to sign up for it, and not everybody's on Facebook and everything.
I could probably do a postcard, but it might be overlooked, I mean, it costs,
I think there's more people on
If you get
Facebook
a
than
certain
think.
number, though, the word will start to get out. I mean, it might get overlooked for some, but once you get some people doing it and they realize they can do it, it starts to gain momentum.
no, I know.
You kind of have to have your system set up to email these different people than
No.
the students.
Right.
Might take some thinking just about how to
It's
get it out.
super hard to get email addresses though it's hard enough to get them for your students that are,
Right.
their home addresses. So people change their email addresses a lot.
Okay, so in summary, let's wrap this up. What's the next steps?
I just think we need to investigate how we could do like a subscription service, like subscribe to our newsletter.
Right, so how about I talk with Josh, our communications coordinator, and we put together a little plan a draft plan of what we might try, and then at the next board meeting, I bring that back and let you know what we're thinking, and then we can give feedback on it.
I think that's a good idea. You can always use something too, like the Benson Bulletin,
Right.
and you could put an email, link to a virtual
Right.
meeting or something like that in there.
And the free press.
Maybe
too.
every
Or in the
town
free
should
press
start
or
its own
something like that.
newspaper, and we just-
Yeah,
The front forum,
yeah, front porch forum, yeah, I mean,
That's one thing. You could try and see how that works,
Yeah. My only thing with email addresses, and I've noticed it through getting a lot of the email addresses here from the teachers up at the high school, is somebody doesn't know how to blind copy. So my email address just went out
Nobody
to
does, I
everybody,
know.
and doing an email at mass mailing of a community letter, my only request is that they make sure they know how to blind copy.
right.
But
Right.
Okay, I guess we'll move on from that then?
Technically, no, but I mean,
All right, so the next items on the agenda, articles of agreement and board retreat. I guess I'll start, Brooke, and just kind of summarize some discussions that Brooke and I have had, and maybe what some next steps are for this board. And this kind of brings also in what we discussed at the Finance Committee and the impending budgetary issues that we're going to have. All right, so articles of agreement, I think we are entering, year number 2 of a fully merged district. Outside of Orwell, it would be year 3. I think the Articles of Agreement as written would be you cannot close a school until after 4 years, and you need 75% board yes, and then it also goes to the town to vote on with a simple majority. There's a lot of steps there. So the idea of revisiting those Articles of Agreement and changing language to lessen the burden, I guess, if you will, or lessen the bar to grant us more flexibility, more powers in closing schools. Is that something the board wants to entertain? Why would we entertain it? I guess primarily to reconfigure our cost structure and to give us more tools to potentially lower expenditures, bring students together for programming and critical mass, etc. So the idea has merit, but is the timing right? And as was discussed at the Finance Committee meeting, there are a few things that we're concerned about in terms of bringing this kind of dialogue to the table now. One being the trust issue that we have with our towns. We just went through a tough budgetary cycle. We're still in the midst of a pandemic. Is now the right time to go out again to the voters and have these sensitive these sensitive discussions about potentially closing a school, So that's a concern. Another concern is, if you were to seek the means to close a school, well, now you've put more students into a physical space in a pandemic when we're trying to spread people out. So that's kind of our thinking in regards to the amending or revisiting the idea of changing the Articles of Agreement. Is now the right time to do it? So that brings in other issues about the Finance Committee and the budget, the upcoming budget cycle. Are we going to be in a position where we have to decrease our budgets? Are we in a position where we're going to have to potentially invest more money into our schools to keep them updated and our budget is going to increase? There's only so much we can cut as we are currently configured, which brings in the idea, well, maybe if we were to close schools, we would have the ability to fundamentally lower some of our costs. And then, the board retreat, really, which is just a platform for us all to get together and talk about these kinds of items and the vision for our school and what a 5-year plan might look like, and to talk about that with nothing else on the agenda, just a relaxed and informal discussion where that's really the only thing, we're talking about. So, some things to consider, really, everyone, what do we think needs to happen with the fiscal year 21 budget? Do you think that we need to revisit the idea of closing schools? And is this the time to do that? We have a strategic plan, and there are a lot of different things that are bullet points as part of that strategic plan, equity, all these different things. What issues are most important to us as a board collectively and individually? And, we need that kind of feedback from the board so that Casey Brooke administration can kind of implement our vision and our strategic plan. So, I've kind of kicked things off with my thoughts and kind of a summary of the discussions the board needs to have. I guess I'll give it to you, Brooke, to see if you have anything to add, and then anyone else, please speak up with ideas or thoughts.
Yeah, so Tim said basically everything I was going to say, except I think we really need to have a board retreat so we know the direction we're headed. The innovation project didn't go through. So there are ideas in there that definitely have merit. So we have not revisited that due to, the crisis that we've all been, faced with. But is the concept of a district middle school still on the table? And if so, are we going to look at one of our existing buildings? Because if that is the case, then it impacts infrastructure, maybe what we do for upgrades to different buildings or fixing different things. If it's not on the table, then what are the other alternatives that we need to look at? But staying in this current configuration for the next 5-10 years is totally not sustainable in the long run. And taxes are just going to increase if that occurs. So, and it's probably not what's best for kids as our enrollment continues to decline. So I think you really need to consider having a retreat to talk about these ideas so we can get a solid direction as to where we're headed in the future.
And I think the idea of a retreat is to have it be in an organized manner where we get information in advance of the retreat. You know, Patty, you've brought up multiple times, you know, when we talk about these big decisions, we need time to think about things and articulate our own feelings and prioritize. So, you know, when we have a board retreat, you know, there's going to be kind of an agenda that gets to us beforehand and maybe a summarized version of what our strategic plan is. And I think board members are going to be asked to kind of rank and prioritize all these different things as to what's most important to them, and then to kind of express themselves and you know, explain themselves to the board at the retreat why they feel that way. And then collectively, hopefully, we can kind of gather and form some consensus. Anybody have anything to say? What's that?
I said I'll go.
You'll go? I mean,
Can I ask a question? Did we ever have a survey or any availability for public to give us any rationales for why they didn't vote besides our listening tours? Was there any other means for people to be able to give that direct information?
No, because we immediately had the COVID crisis.
Yeah, I know. No, I didn't mean it in a negative fashion, but
we didn't.
yeah, I just I really like the listening tour, and I think it's a great idea. Honestly, it gets to a fairly small number of people, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, I think that you have to do multiple things to be able to get, you know, different factions of people to offer their information. So I wonder if that might be some way that we could get a little feedback from our constituency, because I know that, you know, usually there's 30-year-olds with a bunch of kids are not going to come out to a listening tour. They're just not going to do that.
okay. Tara, what's on your mind?
Well, Peter wanted to speak, and I'm going to let Peter speak.
Should you go? Oh, I thought you meant like you'd physically go and attend the meeting. I didn't realize.
That's what I thought, too. I thought the same thing. I thought you meant, I'll go. I was like, okay, good.
I had
I'll
something
go
to say
too.
then, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. On the,
I thought the same
changing
thing.
the articles of agreement, at this time and where we're at, I think it would be a mistake to visit that right now. Just because it's going to be very hard to have meetings with people and get the information out there, and because of our trust issue. One reason they're written that way is because Orwell voted no twice, and they were trying to get him to vote yes. Orwell never voted yes at all. You got to remember that. And the other thing is I think we need a direction of, we should talk about what we're thinking of doing, whether we're thinking of closing a school or making one of the other schools a junior high. So we have an idea of what we want to do before we go asking people, because they're going to ask, why do you want to change them? And if you're going to say because we're going to close 2 schools, they're going to know what schools you're thinking of closing. It's going to make a big difference. And you're really going to have to have a plan, because right now, if you were going to close a school, you know it's going to be Orwell or Benson, because you're not going to close Castle and Fairhaven because there's too many people in them. You're not going to move Fairhaven up to Orwell or Castleton to Benson or something. So we need to have a plan of which direction we want to go, and that might include talking to some of the town people. If they would go for a junior high if it was on a smaller scale, if everything was on a smaller scale. And the other thing is we can close schools and we can reconfigure, but at some point, your taxes are going to start going up again. because you can't cut, close, and get rid of for the rest of our life. I mean, we can't close something every year just to cut taxes, because eventually you run out of spaces to cut. So, and that's just something we gotta think about. We merged to save money. Well, we merged, we saved money, but that's at the end of it. So now you're gonna merge more schools and close more schools to save money, and then in 2 years, what's that gonna do? You're gonna be right back to where you were eventually. So I think we need a vision of what schools we're looking at closing or reconfiguring, you know, whether it be doing a junior high or moving some kids somewhere else or whatever, before we start messing with the Articles of Agreement. I think we mess with the Articles of Agreement, you're gonna upset a lot of people. And you won't be able to have if you can't have an in-person meeting, you can't have a meeting. I'm sorry, that's the way I feel about it. And you can imagine having a meeting virtually of 200 people online. It won't work.
I completely agree with Russ story. I'm not going to drag it out. I think changing that article is extremely foolish. And there's already, as we know, the series trustee issue around Act 36. It's very uncommon. And I know it's a rocket mark.
Done.
So I agree that at this point, changing the Articles of Agreement are a bad idea, for the reasons they said, but when we look at a practical standpoint, okay, in the next couple of years, contracting the amount of space we have available is a bad idea. You know, we hear stories of we're going to have a vaccine, we might have a vaccine, sometime we'll have a vaccine. You know, there's talk about it happening before the election, but in reality, you know, by the time we have one, and you know, I'm going to say, I'm not going to jump right out and get it if it's been rushed this much, and there's a lot of people who feel that way. You know, we have to look ahead, you know, just this year. COVID aside, you know, it's coming to flu season. In past years, we've had, you know, classes in Orwell where half the kids are absent just due to the flu. And I'm sure that's happened in other schools. So for those reasons, you know, contracting things are a bad idea. So that puts us out at least probably 2 years. Looking at the way towns view, you know, the school board and budgets and that type of thing, one of the things we heard loud and clear was that, you know, if we're upfront and, you know, put in the budget, you know, more money for maintenance to take care of the things that have been neglected for the past 10, 15, 20 years, people are willing to pay that if they know where it's going. You know, so there is that option, you know, if that's part of why we're increasing the budgets. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
I guess I would agree with people that have spoken. Toying with the Articles of Agreement is going to bite us real hard right now. And you're seeing it in other places where the board is going ahead and trying to reconfigure schools, where towns are now going to be voting very soon on pulling out of merged districts. And so that's going to get you going in the place you don't want to go as well. So I think the changing of the Articles of Agreement, at least for the next year or two, ought to be just put to bed right now as a non-entity. And, you know, I mean, as it's been said, I mean, yeah, we can keep cutting, but you're not going to get anywhere. So, I mean, the reality is you either got to increase your tax base or you increase your tax rate, because costs are not going to go down at all. So, I mean, we can do our best, but I think we've got to reach out to our communities, or at least strengthen our schools so that we attract more families to the area to increase that tax base.
I think Glenn's right, and I think COVID is doing that for us, since there's been a number of houses sold in Vermont because people are getting away from hot spots. So I think, this next year is going to bring a lot of changes for Vermont as more people kind of migrate up this way.
I don't think you can have a strong school until we have some kind of vision, and I don't think we're all in the same place. I don't think we all have something that we can get behind and that we believe in and that we think of direction we want our schools to go in. And that's what's missing, because we can talk all we want about articles, but we are not, it's obvious from the bond vote, we're not in the same place as a board. And we need to be in the same place if we're gonna move forward with this. And the last board retreat we had was what, 5 years ago?
No, 2 years ago. It was when we first merged.
Yeah. Did we have somebody come down?
Yes, but I
And
don't
did a
think they're
presentation.
willing to come.
No, that's okay.
Right.
I'm just saying, we have some new board members. We have some board members that weren't here for that.
Correct.
And I think it's also really important to go, and I went, when I was a new board member after a couple of years, I think, I went to one of the new board member, classes that you go to. I don't know if people have even gone to those, but to understand what your role is as a board member is super important, because it's so easy to get caught up in the nitty-gritty of what goes on in your schools on a daily basis, because you have kids there, and something happens, or you hear from a parent in the hallway or on the bus, and you get caught up in the nitty-gritty of the school, when as a board member, that's not your function. And so, I think it's important at a board retreat to, number one, review what our roles and responsibilities are, what we even have, what we're even supposed to be doing, and then to come to a place of consensus. In 5 years, we want to be here. This is what we want all kids in Slate Valley to know, and this is how we're going to get there.
Well, I think you also need to decide what's going to make Slate Valley stand out, what's going to make us special.
Yeah, that overarching
Because I do
something.
think that there will be further consolidation in the state of Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
So what makes us special, right, that everyone's going to want to come here?
Yep.
And I think you have to do that by asking the people who are
Right.
sending their children
Right.
to our schools. I mean, we can sit here and talk about it all we want, but, it's really the people who have the children who are coming to our schools should have some kind of a forum where they can say, this is what we would like for our children.
So I think, obviously, transparency is very important. I recognize this is a recorded public meeting, but if we do, take the Riverville High Road, if you will, it's okay to advertise that as well in the newspaper. It's okay to say that these discussions are happening and why we're potentially choosing to take this, a little more open approach.
The problem doesn't seem to be the people who have kids, because they're more likely to vote yes for a budget. It's the people who don't have kids, and those are the people that we need to convince that the money is well spent.
Go ahead, Christine.
I think that one of the things is that the people that don't have kids at the school, and you talked about the trust issues within the communities, is that when we talked about the newsletter type of thing, the kind of things that need to be in there too are, these are the things that are concerning us, these are the things that we're thinking of in the going forward and planning for the next budget. We've got, a lot of issues with the school buildings, and it's costly. We're, trying our best to only do what we have to, but if we put off big repairs too long, it's gonna cause emergencies that are gonna have to take a lot of money and things like that. Those are the kind of things I think that the people, the public, kind of need to know. And they need to know that within the context of right now, we're also having the issue of people not having as much money, people that are laid off, people that are not working. I mean, to tell those people their taxes are gonna have to go up for all these kind of things, that's where the cut comes from, because people can't afford it.
All right, so I guess the next question is, well, when do we do this retreat? Is it a in place of a regular board meeting? Is it on a weekend, on a Friday afternoon? I mean, I think we all have to have an open mindset that it's not going to be a come here and get out of here in an hour and a half. It's going to be a longer meeting and discussion, so anybody have any?
Last time we did it in place of a board meeting, but
We started earlier.
And we
we
started.
started earlier, we had dinner, but I don't think we can have dinner unless it's prepackaged.
We can bring our own.
True.
And you were asking all of us to be in person, or some can still do it virtually?
Well, that we'd have to figure out. I mean, I think we'd also want to get someone to facilitate it.
Yep, that's a good idea.
Because at this point, you should probably find out if the board members that are on, are they willing to come out and come in person? And if they're not, are we okay with that?
I mean, you know, we could also, I mean, I think as part of the retreat, you might do a protocol and break up into groups. I mean, we could figure out how to include folks virtually if we had to. I mean,
Yeah, you can do breakout rooms and everything. We do it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that means we would have to go on Zoom too to be in the
No.
breakout room?
No, but you can do it right here,
just
you know,
have to
you can do
carry the
it.
computer with you
Yeah.
to the room.
You just go to the room with your own computer, and then you do your breakout room, and then you come back afterwards.
Be a little cumbersome, but
All right.
we could do it.
Yeah, it's all right.
And again, there's going to be some work that goes into this before we meet. Like the idea of a survey or a prioritizing of these strategic bullet points. I mean, would it be beneficial to know before the retreat that, you know, these 3 board members have ranked equity as their most pressing issue, and these board members here have ranked, you know, cost and sustainability, and these board members have ranked, career development? I mean, how do you talk about breakout groups, so how do you break out into groups? You break out by shared interests, right? And shared priorities?
Potentially, or you could do the opposite, right? So that you get people,
One from each priority
right.
to have a conversation, right?
I mean, it depends. Yeah, you can do
So-
it any way you want.
What if I work with the central office team, put together a draft, like, just a draft agenda of what it could look like? Also see if somebody from the VSBA can do a training on roles and responsibilities at the beginning. I mean, they could do that virtually.
They can do that
We could
virtually,
patch them in. Yeah. That wouldn't be a big deal. I mean, I just think it would behoove us to have the retreat sooner rather than later, so.
Tim, how many people are watching tonight?
14.
virtually?
Well, that's 14 minus me, minus Chris Cole, minus Cheryl.
I'm on to.
Yeah, there's like 4 of us who have laptops open,
So it's a very small number.
But how many
Tonight.
board members are online? Tanya?
just Rebecca and Tanya. I don't think Angie's here tonight.
No.
And Rebecca Spears is on too.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there's 3.
So there's not very many townspeople.
All right, well, can you?
I mean, I could draft a retreat agenda and then work with the executive committee of the board for you guys to give me feedback on it,
Sure.
if that works, and then put a potential date, potentially be, well, if we're not doing the advisory meetings, because we can't do them in person, could we do it like October 26th or something?
I can do it the 26th, but I won't be able to do it again until January.
Turkey time!
You're not going to accommodate everybody's schedules in this room.
It's okay.
I have no idea if there's a game that day.
Start the 28th.
I'm fine with that. That's a regularly scheduled time slot for a meeting, so it's nothing added and extra, and I would certainly say 5:30?
5:30, we would have to cancel building and grounds and policy that night, but probably all right.
I'd rather start early, personally.
Yeah,
Is that all right,
Yep.
Chris?
Yeah.
gotta start early too.
Yeah.
All right.
Bring snacks.
You can't feed us?
You can if it's wrapped.
I can if it's prepackaged.
Gotta be
I can work on
prepackaged, that's
that.
the rule.
Slim Jim.
Slim
Last
Jims,
time we
there you
had
go.
pizza, which I can't do that unless they're personal.
Let's make it a cocktail hour.
So wait a minute, is that 5:30?
Definitely can't
Getting
do
really
that.
creative.
Speaking of cocktail parties,
If I
let's
bring a
go,
cooler, will people think less of me?
let's go to.
We're on school properties.
Is there a football game that night?
So how long are you expecting to go?
I think last time, weren't we done around 9?
No, Cheryl, well, Cheryl, you just bring a pillow, honey.
You're not gonna turn into a pumpkin,
Okay,
Karen.
Tara?
Whatever, I'm just asking. I mean, it's not just being that it's, 4 hours is a long time to sit and, after being at work since 7:30
All right,
in the morning.
we'll shoot for 8:30, 5:30 to
It won't
8:30.
happen, but that's okay.
Just because you said it now.
It won't happen. The last one didn't.
Well, I mean, the more organized we are coming into the
We
meeting.
can look into prepackaged.
Yeah, but we like to rehash stuff
refreshments.
over and over again.
We can get on that, too.
Okay, well, thanks for the talking about that. Let's move on. So job descriptions, they were attached to this packet. There's 2 of them. One is in regards to the student services coach, and the second one is in regard to the position in Orwell, soon to be occupied.
And it's also a position we already have at
Where is
Fairhaven
it?
Grade School, so social emotional interventionist.
Social emotional interventionalist.
These are positions that we've had.
Oh, there it is.
I think I said when I first started here, we had started updating all of the job descriptions in the district because some of them are from the 70s. So, so these are just some positions that we, still needed to do, so.
We're basically looking for a motion to approve the updated language describing these positions.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on these 2
I
positions?
got a question. Now, but these are positions that aren't filled at this point?
The one at Fairhaven Grade School is. The one in Orwell, hopefully you will hire tonight. They're both grant-funded positions. And then the student services coach, somebody's in that position currently. They are leaving to take another job, so we are hiring for that position.
But the one in Orwell is grant funded, you said?
Yep.
Makes me a little nervous, this grant funded stuff, because is it gonna last forever?
No.
Do we need that position to last forever?
No,
Is it?
we don't need any position to last forever.
Yeah, I mean, Casey can speak to it, but also if we don't use the money, we lose it too. So we get penalized for not spending it. It definitely is a need. In some of these positions, we've been able to transition them slowly into local funds. In some cases, some of these positions have been grant funded for 20 years. So, I think it depends on the circumstance. The one at Fairhaven Grade School has been grant funded for years, the majority of that position.
And so the one in student services coach, that's the one for Fairhaven Grade School?
Well, that's one of them, but Fairhaven Grade School also has a social emotional interventionist that has
Oh,
been grant funded. Yep.
Well, how about the student services coach? Is that a new position?
No. No. It's existing. It's existed for, I think Deb and Ferna is on the call, but it's been around since I've been here. Christina Wheeler's in the position now, so.
And again, we're just approving the language, the description of the position, not the position itself.
Or updating what the
Yeah.
the description.
Are there any other questions, discussion?
Nick, is your question about the fact that we do grant funded positions? Like, is your concern we're grant funding a lot of people, what happens if that money goes away? Is that your question?
Well, I just get concerned. These grants are nice to start with.
So we have, I'm in, including myself, so a quarter of my position is grant funded. There's up to 8 personnel that are funded through the grants that I manage. So, as Brooke said, we try to, when it makes sense, transition someone to the locally funded line. But because of how the federal funding works, we are receiving an amount of money that does get taken away if we aren't able to use it. So it's a little bit of a, I don't want to say cat and mouse, but there's some money that we get that I manage, and so it makes the most sense to use it for personnel because therefore it gets used. And so we hope that benefits students. If we found that at some point that, say, excess of close to $1 million was going to be taken away, right, then I have to figure out, oh goodness, what is it that we're going to do now if that money is perhaps going to go away in some manner. So I keep pretty close tabs on it, work with Cheryl and Brooke to make certain that we're reading things accurately as we look down the road. But it is true that we have a number of folks who we approve in the finance committee bills to pay certain grants, that it's an amount of money that covers not only some of the people that work with me, but also some of the people that work with Chris.
Chris herself is partially
Chris herself is
grant
partially
funded,
grant
so we've had
funded
these
as well.
positions for years and years.
So it is something to keep in your mind, but I think you've done a pretty, more than a pretty good job, an excellent job of maintaining the employment of folks through grant funding over the years that we felt are important. To Patty's point, you don't have to fund somebody forever if it's not a good fit for the right position.
Thanks for the input, Casey. Any other questions or concerns about the motion on the floor, approving the language? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the language for the social emotional interventionist and the student services coach, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, central office report, that was
Don't we
type,
need to do this, Brooke?
we're gonna do that under other business.
Actually, there's one more.
Contracts too.
There's
Do you want?
Central office report, there was a write-up included in our packet, prepared by central office. Does anyone have any questions on that report? Okay. Thank you for the update, yes. Other business, I've been advised that we have a couple contracts to approve. So Peter, you've got the contracts in hand?
Yep, I'll make a motion for Jason Roscoe for social emotional interventionist, $59,640, prorated base of an annual salary of $64,122, and Kevin McCarthy for a science teacher, $43,773, prorated based on an annual salary of $47,613.
Second.
Is there any discussion or questions about either of these positions or contracts? Anybody remotely? Board members have a question? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the contracts, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, Brooke, is there a need for an executive session?
Hey, Tim, just a quick, I don't know if everybody's actually seen the articles of agreement, but I would like them emailed to me again, just to remind me of kind of where we sit, where we stand, and the ability to read them again and kind of refresh my, because it's been a while since I've actually looked at them and.
Are they online?
Yeah,
but not easily accessible.
Yeah, so I'll send it to you.
They're buried a little bit. We pull them out, email them.
I did skip over. Is there any other business? Brooke, is there a need for an executive
sorry.
session? And agenda building, what should we look forward to on the 28th of September?
Well, I think I'm gonna come back with, to you with some more, talk a little bit more about communication and kind of a draft
Okay.
plan for that. We can certainly talk about the retreat a bit more. We will have had a policy committee in building and grounds, so policy committee, there will be some pieces like the new Title IX legislation that went into effect August 14th that schools are now just starting to get up to speed on, so there's a lot to that. Probably the reopening continued, I don't know.
Well, yeah, where we stand.
Yeah, where we stand in the reopening and the COVID response, really.
About stage 3, so you're saying that what was supposed to be potentially Monday is now not likely because you're only going to be getting guidance on Friday?
That's what we're hearing.
And what's in the guidance? Hasn't the guidance already been spelled out, what stage 3
I
allows
don't
you to
know.
do?
Yes, not super specifically, but yes. I don't know. We haven't gotten any word on that. I think if we're moving
the
to
26th,
stage 3, I'm not
26th
sure how
of
that can
October.
happen overnight.
And I think they said 5:30.
Yeah, I got
5:30
that.
to 8:30.
Because stage 3 is mentioned in the initial document that they put out in July.
Correct.
But the specifics aren't in there.
Well, there's some specifics, like you can start to think about reopening cafeterias and gyms
Right.
for their intended use. But, I don't know that I'd be doing that on day 1 of reopening. If things are going well and the current, with the current plan, I would delay some of that a bit to make sure it continues to go well. So I'd want to be really purposeful with that. I think you don't necessarily have to have the bus monitors on the bus, but the bus monitor situation has been going really well and the discipline referrals are way down. So, it's kind of twofold. It's had an unintended consequence. So,
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Oh, what? Are we still another, or did we?
We moved on, but we can go back.
I should update on the bus contract.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, so, just going back to other real quick on the bus contract. We were supposed to get 10 new buses this year on our contract, complete with GPS, all of those pieces. We're not going to be able to get the buses because the plants all shut down during COVID, so they're not even going to be able to get to us till spring. So what we spoke with the bus company about is we're actually going to operate under the cost of last year's contract plus the cost of CPI because we can't get any of the new equipment. And we're also down on runs because we don't have enough drivers. So there will be a significant cost savings in busing. I just don't have that in front of me right now because we just had the meeting on Friday about it. But I just wanted to let you know in case you probably haven't noticed any new buses on the road. So that's the issue. The manufacturing plants haven't been able to manufacture them. So we're just going to hold off on that for this year and put that in place the following year.
On the buses though, so Oral has 2.
Yeah.
It's down on ridership because we asked everybody to ride,
Correct,
to
yeah.
drive to school. So but from when I look at the bus run, it needs to go back to 3. I mean, I'm not saying right now, it's fine
No,
because of during COVID, but it just, I was looking at the bus runs because some of the runs, it's like not even coming up our road anymore because there's
Yeah.
nobody on our road.
Yeah, of
everybody
course.
decided.
I mean, we're going to reassess all of that, but the fact of the matter is we were short 3 drivers the week before school, so we had to cut runs
Well, I understand that. I just want to make sure that it's not going to be a definite that all of a sudden Orwell's going to be with just 2 buses because it's
Right,
just-
no. And Castleton's had cuts in buses. Benson, I mean, they have 2 buses running, but I just found out today that the one bus only has 2 kids on it right now. The other thing is, I think we need to let things settle and see, who's going to start riding the bus again, kind of let those things work out. And definitely a priority has to be to get those that Stafford bus, picking up kids at 2:20 and bringing them back here. Right now, we just don't have anyone.
How many kids does that affect?
Well, we've worked with families to have them try to pick up their own kids, but on a,
Yeah, on red, they go red and white in Stafford.
Yep.
And on red days, it's been between 5 and 8. And on white days,
because it's Phil running over with one of our vans to pick up the kids, or Jackie in the front off, I mean, it's.
No, I get it. It's
Can you
tough.
try
I
like
have a
Marble
little bus they
Valley
can take.
Transit or, anything like that for
Because
sure?
they have to be classified as a school bus, so it's.
Paving. She's back in 10 minutes.
DMV's not gonna approve that,
Some guidance
so.
I was over.
But it's a huge.
I mean,
Huge issue.
it affects like extra that the kids get in the morning. Like, my son hasn't been able to do his extra stuff in the morning with Mr. Sen because he can't ride the bus to Stafford because he has no way home. So it affects more than just the bus ride. It affects services as well.
Okay. We're gonna wrap it up. Chris, this new technology is great.
Seemed to work a lot better.
Seemed to work a lot better.
Good job, Chris.
Thanks for
Thank
doing
you.
that, and I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right.